Hi, I'm Steve Bissette. I'm an instructor at the Center for Cartoon Studies in White River Junction, Vermont, a native Vermonter, and I've made part of my living over the years drawing and writing zombie stories. In fact, I owe a great deal to zombies, which I'll explain as I talk about tonight's movie, White Zombie. The movie we're going to be watching is the first official zombie movie. Some people will argue that the somnambulance that Conrad Veidt played in the German film The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from 1919 might be the first zombie, but the fact is the word zombie did not exist in the pop culture until 1929, when an adventurer and a writer named William Seabrook wrote an incredibly popular bestseller called The Magic Island. It was a book about the island of Haiti, and in that book, William Seabrook presented the idea that on the island of Haiti, the dead could walk and were in fact being mobilized by zombie masters who were using them as cheap, unpaid labor. Unlike the zombies that most of you know today from pop culture icons like Night of the Living Dead and TV series like The Walking Dead, the original zombies didn't eat human flesh at all. In fact, it's a taboo spelled out by William Seabrook in The Magic Island to even give them meat. You would only feed them salt and vegetables. That didn't change until the late 1960s with the film The Night of the Living Dead, written by John Rousseau, directed by George Romero. That was the beginning of cannibalistic Walking Dead. What you're seeing in tonight's movie is sort of the template being created right in front of your eyes for the popular idea of zombies. This film was shot in 1931. It was shot on remaining sets left over from Universal Studios' two hit films, Dracula and Frankenstein. And because of the phenomenal box office success of Dracula, Bela Lugosi was cast as the zombie master in tonight's film, White Zombie. And I'm not going to tell you his name because it's one of the delights of the film. It's one of the greatest names ever for a horror film character. This was quietly shot as an independent film by the Halperin brothers, Victor and Edward Halperin. They were super low-budget producers who were taking a gamble, and they thought that they had something new. This was a new kind of creature to bring to the screen. It was also one of the first films that, in some of its advertising, actually included bad reviews that had been published for the film, basically trying to tantalize audiences to come in and see why this film was so offensive to some people. White Zombie was a huge hit when it came out in 1932, and it in fact briefly made the Halperin brothers quite wealthy. They squandered that money on a series of films that did not make anywhere near the money that White Zombie did. And 4 years later, they tried a sequel called Revolt of the Zombies, which has none of the power and none of the beauty of tonight's movie. White Zombie is a very odd movie. It's a very dreamlike movie. It's very slow. It is paced like a dream, and it's essentially an adult fairy tale. The character that Bela Lugosi plays decides that a woman who is to be wed to another man is the love of his life, and he is going to make her his own, which sadly is what we've seen in real life. A number of people, including Edward Dahmer, have actually tried to do, converting people into zombies to make them their love slaves. Well, Lugosi was first. I'm not recommending that you try this at home. This film was a staple of late-night TV when I was a kid growing up. I was born in 1955. This was on television all over the place, all the time. And it was the perfect movie to stumble into at midnight or after and wake up the next morning and wonder if you dreamed this movie or not. It has proved very popular over the years, not just because it settled into public domain for a time, but it also is a very unique movie, as you'll see. When Rob Zombie was forming his first rock group, he called his group White Zombie, and it was very much a direct reference to this movie you're going to be seeing now. The film has been restored recently. I'm not sure what print you'll be seeing here today, but it's one of those few films like Carnival of Souls or like Carl Dreyer's Vampire that sometimes I actually prefer watching the washed out doopy prints, which makes it even more dreamlike and more like some sort of half-remembered fairy tale that you might have heard. The illustrator of William Seabrook's The Magic Island, a man named Alexander King, was the man who really created the visual template of how we picture zombies. And this movie, White Zombie, based its makeups on some of those Alexander King drawings. However, as you'll notice, the zombies in the film are not Haitians. They are white actors in makeup, trying to remove the race element from this story. The makeup was actually by Jack Pierce, who was the man who created the trademark makeups of Frankenstein's monster that Boris Karloff wore, the Wolfman for Universal Studios, the makeup that Lon Chaney Jr. wore. Jack Pierce was moonlighting and not yet under studio contract in 1931, so he was able to do the makeup for White Zombie. There's actually some pretty startling makeup effects in this movie. They're very fleeting and very brief, but it's surprising to see them in a film from the early 30s. That's because White Zombie was made and released before the Motion Picture Association's morality code was being enforced. So you're going to see some surprisingly graphic shots involving the zombies working in the sugar mills, and especially one moment where one of the zombies is shot on camera. That would not have been permitted 2 years later. So without further ado, pull the shades, turn down the lights, tune into the screen, and lose yourself in White Zombie.